The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has been working on an initiative called Engineering with Nature. It all started in 2010. And this is the EWN Podcast. EWN is developing and implementing nature-based solutions for water and infrastructure projects. It's bringing together a growing international community of scientists, engineers, and researchers from all kinds of disciplines that are committed to harnessing the power of nature to solve problems. The EWN Podcast tells their stories. Now here's your host, Sarah Thorne of Decision Partners.
Advancing the practice of engineering with nature is a primary goal for the Engineering with Nature program, and technology transfer, in part through publications, is a critical pathway to achieving this goal. Welcome to Season 8, Episode 8. Today, I'm here with Amanda Tritinger, Deputy Lead of the Engineering with Nature program, and Courtney Chambers, Communications Lead for the Engineering with Nature program. We're here to talk about some of the Engineering with Nature program's key publications, including 2 new ones. Amanda, welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you on the EWN podcast.
Hey, Sarah. It's great to be here. It's been a minute. I had to unwind my mic cables, but they're all dusted off and I'm ready to go and excited to talk with Courtney today.
Excellent. And Courtney, I don't know if our listeners know the key role that you play in the podcast and the role you play in shaping how we share stories of engineering with nature across all of our platforms. As a communications lead, you manage the Engineering with Nature website, you oversee podcast promotions, and you ensure that our publications and content reach all the right audiences. So it's just great to have you join us on air for this conversation. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here with you guys today. And it's a pleasure to be a part of the team here that brings these conversations to a bigger audience. And I really love how the podcast gets to take the stories of EWN and the best practices of EWN and connect those to others that we don't get to see face to face. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you guys today.
So I'd like to start by talking about why we do publications. And Amanda, maybe you can kick us off. Why are publications so critical to advancing the practice?
Publications close the gap when it comes to gaps in knowledge. They are critical for advancing the practice for a variety of reasons. First, they can demonstrate what can and is being done and showcase real-world applications of natural infrastructure. That can inspire others to adopt these strategies in their own projects. By publishing, we make it possible for natural infrastructure to be integrated into more projects, for natural infrastructure strategies to be brought into more science, and we can drive innovation across multiple sectors. Furthermore, keeping our research and science at the forefront of the field is essential, and it's helping us achieve high-quality publications and projects. Our publications not only help maintain top-tier standing in the research world, but they also create valuable opportunities for citations, collaborations, and knowledge sharing. Ultimately, the more we publish, the more projects we can contribute to, which can fuel continuous innovation and propel the practice of natural infrastructure moving forward.
Well, we've certainly seen that with the atlases. We now have volumes 1 to volumes 3. We introduced Atlas Volume 3 in Season 7, Episode 5. But Courtney, maybe you could speak to the atlases and your experience in helping create them.
The Atlas series is such a cool product. It was very innovative in its time, certainly for a federal agency, but it was born out of a conversation that I understand Dr. Todd Bridges, the founder of Engineering with Nature, had with Mr. Dalton, the director of Civil Works at the time. And we were we were coalescing around the key principles of engineering with nature and what that is, what it means to engineer with nature, which I'll run through really quickly because you'll see them prominently used throughout our Atlas series and our other publications. Those principles are applying science and engineering to produce operational efficiencies, leveraging natural processes to enhance performance, minimize resource demands, and extend project lifespan, expanding the range of benefits achieved by integrating economic, ecological, social benefits, and using collaboration to streamline projects, reduce delays, and build mission-aligned infrastructure. So these principles, again, they're scattered throughout our publications, but early on we were trying to communicate what it means to engineering with nature and what a good idea it is for the Corps of Engineers. And Mr. Dalton told Todd at the time that you really need to show people what this looks like. They don't understand key principles the same way that they would understand what it looks like. And so that's where the idea was born. So Dr. Todd Bridges and Dr. Jeff King, our current national lead, teamed up and they went to work at creating the very first atlas. And if you haven't seen it, it is a beautiful coffee table type of book that is very image rich. It's got big full page spread pictures of projects built with engineering with nature principles. And throughout the book, you'll see the use of icons that identify those 4 key principles I just mentioned that really guide what we mean when we say engineering with nature. So it was a way to capture what was already being done in such a way that we could promote that as a standard practice for USACE, but also others that are building infrastructure.
The first atlas was just like groundbreaking. And it was the first time we'd actually been able to show people what engineering with nature is all about. Then you went on and did Atlas 2 and Atlas 3. Same quality of work, but a lot more case examples. So talk a little bit about that, Courtney.
Yes, you're right. So Engineering with Nature Atlas Volume 1 was a great success. People really enjoyed it. It's a beautiful product. The design team was amazing. And it really resonated with people. And so we proceeded. We did Atlas Volume 2, and we set out another call for projects, and people were able to submit those. They are not just USACE projects. These are projects that others have done, not even just partners, like anybody that has a project that represents these 4 engineering with nature principles and wants to showcase that was invited to submit and propose their project for inclusion. So we did that again. Atlas 2 and Atlas 3, they're organized similarly by the same feature chapters. So you'll see a chapter on, beaches and dunes and floodplain setbacks and the use of vegetation for engineering function, things like that. And so we kept that same format for Volume 2 and Volume 3. And again, they were really well received. In our most recent call for projects for Atlas Volume 3, we received more project submissions than we could include, unfortunately, because that book would have been too big to carry and nobody would have wanted that. And I've received multiple requests since that, are we doing Volume 4? And that's a hold. We're not announcing a call for projects at this time just yet, but it's exciting to know that the practice has advanced so far and is so well recognized at this point that there's, more projects than we could print.
Yeah, as you can tell, the Atlas is one of our favorite products. Courtney, it's funny, I've been involved in the Atlases and I'm re-inspired to love them again. That was really well put. But if I could speak to not only just how high quality these projects are, but how important they are to expanding the practice. As an engineer, that's one of my favorite things to see is just how powerful of a tool the atlases are for building buy-in and advancing the natural infrastructure practice. Because these atlases, they serve as this tangible proof of concept that shows stakeholders and even team members just what is possible or what you can envision the future of sustainable infrastructure looking like. We can rapidly bring this field to its most innovative realization. So imagine that you are a stakeholder. You live in a place we're proposing a natural infrastructure project, and you're told by the Army Corps that we're going to take beneficial use material and put it on your beach. That could sound a lot like mud is going on your favorite outdoor activity place. So the atlases are able to show that beneficial use material can be a very beautifying method for bringing that social benefit, that ecological benefit, and then do things like not only provide risk reduction to your community, but added value.
I think that's a good example. I think that's a really good example, because I think what the atlases have really done is given you tangible evidence demonstrating engineering with nature in action, from everything from dune restoration to building reefs out of oysters to wetlands preservation and numerous other applications.
Each project has its own little short biography as well that just can quantify that collective story of how natural systems can unlock enduring value and create projects that are not only cost effective, but can yield those multiple benefit outcomes. And they also, like Courtney mentioned, they embody this spirit of collaboration. Every call we make, we get these responses. We have to go back and forth with the folks that put in with their projects, and we learn more about projects not only around the country, but around the world, and create this long-lasting network of practitioners. Again, I just want to talk about how multi-benefit and how much these projects give back. I will cite a quote from John Muir, who wisely said, "In every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks." And through these shared efforts, we are able to contribute to the future where sustainability and partnerships and innovative solutions define our engineering legacy. That quote's in the book in Atlas 3.
Oh.
I wanted to pop it in. It's my favorite.
Beautiful. So we'll put all the links to the atlases in our show notes. But Courtney, I want to move past the atlases. You've been working on a number of other major publications in the Engineering with Nature program. Why don't you talk about some of those?
Oh, I'd love to. You're right. We did not stop with the atlases. Anybody that knows EWN knows we love to produce things with others, and we like to make beautiful things when we can. And so a couple I want to call your attention to. I'll mention them and tell you a little bit about them, but then we get to talk to the writing team today and hear a little bit more about how these products were really crafted and the technical effort that went into making them happen. But I'll get us started with those. One of our newest products that you can download today, it's been published, is the Natural Infrastructure for Mission Readiness at U.S. Marine Corps and Navy installations. This is a really neat publication because in some ways it's organized. It's organized a little bit like the Atlas. You'll recognize components out of it because you'll see those 4 key EWN principles called out by their icons. This publication is important because it connects engineering approaches directly to national defense priorities, demonstrating how natural infrastructure can support operational readiness by providing cost-effective solutions to reduce threats to critical infrastructure and ranges. So that's a really cool publication. I hope you'll check out, and you'll get to hear more about how we went about crafting those solutions with the team and with the installations themselves. Another big effort over the last year is one that's called the 4 Coasts Project Idea Handbook. And this project identified design concepts for incorporating engineering with nature in 4 of our EWN proving grounds. So the San Francisco district, the Mobile district, the Great Lakes, and the Philadelphia district. And just to step back for a second, for anyone unfamiliar, our EWN proving grounds are key locations, USACE districts, where they are actively implementing engineering with nature principles in real world conditions. So these districts help us refine approaches and scale up implementation. And what's really cool about this report is where the Atlas featured projects that have already been built and the purposes that they're serving, This project idea handbook looks into the future and identifies prospective solutions that would be applicable on the 4 coasts of the United States. So it's a really neat visionary product, and it was very collaborative, like many of our efforts are. And so we had landscape architects involved in crafting some really beautiful design renderings that inspire what's possible and just get people thinking about natural infrastructure or to address everyday core missions.
Those are great examples. And we also, we've already talked about the thin layer placement publication that we talked about that in season 6, episode 9. And we're going to talk about a couple more publications as we go forward here. But Amanda, I also want to talk about the peer review articles, because that's a really big part of publications as well.
Yeah, the peer-reviewed articles are a critical tool for expanding the practice of engineering with nature. At ERDIC, we are continually working on being the state of the art in this field. And we can do that through various channels, including our ERDIC tech notes, our tech reports, and peer-reviewed articles. 2 notable examples are, 1, the site characterization of a restored coastal dune and beach, and 2, life cycle management of natural infrastructure, assessment of state of practice and current tools. As you can tell by the titles, they're 2 very different publications, but both in high-level journals, and they speak to both the engineering impact as well as the life cycle analysis, cost-benefit analysis of these features. The first publication dives into the technical details of coastal dune and beach restoration, which by now hopefully people know is really near and dear to my heart. And this one provides insights into long-term performance and resilience of natural systems, while the second publication can examine the state of the practice and tools available for managing the life cycle of natural infrastructure, offering a valuable guidance for integrating natural infrastructure solutions into overall systems-based infrastructure management. And these publications exemplify just how peer-reviewed research is pushing the boundaries of what we can achieve with natural infrastructure solutions and how we can help refine and expand this ever-evolving systems-based practice.
And really, how all of the innovation that is that's going on.
And because this is important to ERDIC and we can become the subject matter experts in this field and make sure that we are pushing those boundaries and being state-of-the-art, we can reference these peer-reviewed journal publications in things like our engineering guidance, which is a huge effort that Engineering with Nature has been leading so that we can have the state-of-the-art in practice, in guidelines, in guidance for our practitioners. Courtney, I think you could speak a little to this.
Yes, I'd love to. Our listeners might be familiar with one of our other favorite products, the International Guidelines on Natural and Nature-Based Features for Flood Risk Management. This was a huge effort that culminated in an over 1,000-page guideline document that was published in 2021. It blazed the trail and was a very collaborative product that provided some overarching guidelines on how we consider these natural infrastructure features. So dunes, what do we need to be thinking about? Reefs, again, vegetation. It was more about how do we start thinking about these to solve our engineering challenges. But it wasn't guidance. It was guidelines. So more general, more broad. And what we're doing now is taking that to the next step. So we are working on natural infrastructure engineering and constructing guidance. And those are going to be published as ERDIC tech reports. So these will be a series of reports detailing the design of individual natural infrastructure features. The first 2 are already in development. That is the floodplain benching. That's going to be the first one to publish this summer, followed by oyster reefs that will be published in September. And these really are critically important because when we polled our Engineering with Nature implementation cadre, which is a network of USACE practitioners working to advance natural infrastructure, The number one challenge they identified was the lack of technical design guidance to utilize natural infrastructure in core projects. So these reports are specifically here to help fill that gap and provide the engineering detail needed to confidently move projects forward.
It's wonderful to know that those are in the works and coming up in the months ahead. So, yeah, thank you for that, Courtney. I want to get you to talk a little bit about the two publications we really wanted to focus on here. I had the opportunity when we were preparing for this episode to talk with your colleague, Holly Jansen-Schmidt. She's from Jacobs, and she played a key role in the Navy playbook. Holly, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role in developing the Navy playbook.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm Holly Jansen-Schmidt. I'm the National Director of the Planning Group for Advisory Solutions at Jacobs. I'm also a corporate liaison for our Sustainability, Resilience, and Climate Response Business Advisory. And I've had the pleasure of meeting with and working with the previous director, Todd Bridges, of Engineering with Nature, and now the current director, Jeff King, when we were working on the rebuild at Tyndall Air Force Base. And that has just blossomed into a beautiful partnership between Jacobs and EWN and has led into this work with the Navy that we're going to talk about today.
Well, we're so excited to have you. We actually did a show really early on in the Engineering with Nature podcast about the plans for Tyndall Air Force Base. So it's so cool to see that the work has gone on and it's something that's covered in the playbook. Let's talk a little bit about the playbook. Tell us about some of the highlights from your perspective.
Well, it was really varied in terms of the geographies that we explored with the Navy program. We focused on 3 geographies: the Southeast United States, the Southwestern United States, and the Hawaiian Islands. So there were really varied degrees of environmental considerations, shocks and stressors, climate change factors, other disasters that were prone to those areas, as well as enduring stressors that were really creating some of these conditions that posed risk. So in the Southeast, we're really looking at hurricanes and flooding and water and wind. In the Southwest, it's the opposite. It's very desertous, it's dry, you have seismic over there. And then when you get to the Hawaiian Islands, it's just uniquely its own environment that has both coastal erosion, it has some invasive species that were doing some really interesting damage that we were looking at, and it had flooding issues as well. So I think just the real dramatic variance of the types of environments we were looking at was super interesting.
Yeah, and as I was going through the playbook, I saw the magnificent pictures and the architectural sketches, which are landscape architect sketches, which I thought were so neat, how the teams were envisioning what could be done and then, looking at pictures of what has been done. How do you see the book being used by readers?
Well, thank you for mentioning landscape architects. I am a landscape architect myself by degree, and so I'm very affectionate towards that profession. And I'm so fortunate to work with some highly, highly talented landscape architects at Jacobs that really assisted with this program and brought some of those graphics to life, like you're mentioning. Brett Wiley is a very talented LA here at Jacobs and did many of these sketches. And the intention of the book is to really be non-technically user-friendly, so that someone could look at some of these sketches and really understand some of the characteristics and the components that we're addressing, that through these beautiful visuals of photography and stakeholders interacting, you can really get a feel for the real dynamic environments where we're working and just that collaboration. And so it's meant to be something that creates awareness, that demonstrates that we are able to really do these projects on the ground and that it's being embraced by the Department of Defense, and particularly kudos to the Navy for engaging with us in this way. And so it's really awareness building, and it's just really meant to sort of excite people with the visuals and the beauty of what we were trying to bring forward.
Yeah, when I was looking at it, I was thinking one of the things that I think you've done really well in the playbook is just show people what the possibilities are. I could see a project team going through the book and going, yeah, we could do that, and just getting up and drawing their own possibilities. I think that's very inspiring.
Well, it really starts with understanding the vulnerabilities and what aspects of the natural environment are creating shocks and stressors to mission assurance and threatening mission continuity. And so once we can understand what those components are, whether again, if it's erosion or sea level rise, and a lot of our naval facilities are coastal or are near water environments, and so water is an issue. Then we can understand the natural processes that can be used to really adapt and mitigate to those conditions and lessen that risk. And so it's very exciting for me to be able to look at nature through that lens of providing infrastructure benefits that have many, many co-benefits aside from a natural infrastructure responsibility.
Oh, absolutely. Holly, how do you think the Navy Playbook will add value to really advancing the practice of engineering with nature across naval installations, but also maybe far beyond?
Well, I think that the Navy has been willing to enter into this workshop and these exciting conceptual sessions with us. And in many cases, those project ideas that were generated during the workshops have now matured and evolved into actual conceptual and design work. So the Navy is actually funding these. They are beginning to look at design, permitting, engaging with stakeholders. So it's not as though it was just a thought exercise. It's actually being put into implementation. And I talk about nature-based infrastructure, engineering with nature, green infrastructure. There's a lot of synonyms there across all markets, not just the Department of Defense. But I really hold up these examples of Tyndall and the Department of the Navy and say, if the DoD is doing it, then anyone can do it, right? Because that's a tough environment to really get some of these non-traditional, non-business as usual applications executed, and we're doing it.
One of the things that's really exciting here is the scale of these engineering nature applications.
Well, the key to these engineering with nature applications is that we have to approach it on a systems basis. And so when we look at our natural systems, whether that's a dune system, a marsh system, a desert or habitat system, those systems don't recognize property lines. They don't recognize who owns what piece of land. And so the key is to look at that systems wide ecosystem and to look at what biomimicry and nature is telling us we can do to help mitigate and combat some of these risks. And then to work across those stakeholders that really are all invested in seeing a systems wide solution. But it's just a little more challenging when you need to knit all of those folks together, get them on the same page, and get them all marching in the same direction.
Well, Holly, congratulations on your role in getting this marvelous playbook out. So you've done a great job. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, I really, really appreciate it. It's absolutely a passion project for me. I'm so excited to see it blossoming and really value, again, our partnership with Engineering with Nature. So thank you.
Amanda, this Navy playbook really provides the drawings, illustrations, potential solutions for all kinds of infrastructure challenges on U.S. Navy and Marine Corps installations.
Yes, the Navy Playbook is an excellent resource that provides those detailed drawings, illustrations, and potential solutions for a wide range of infrastructure challenges faced by the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps installations. Many of those solutions, they need to be landscape scale strategies that incorporate natural infrastructure solutions to enhance mission readiness and mission resilience. What makes this so important is that it offers a practical, adaptable being that key word, especially for the installations, a practical, adaptable framework for addressing real-world challenges using natural infrastructure. So this is a huge valuable resource, like Courtney mentioned. We're really proud of it. And it's not only for military installations, but it's going to be important for other sectors too that are facing similar vulnerabilities and infrastructure challenges. You know, the installations, they care, they want to move forward, and they are the people to turn to turn this scaled up version of natural infrastructures into a reality. And with the playbook, we can add significant value through offering these practical, tested solutions that can be tailored to different locations and different needs. This resource, it's going to help others see the potential for integrating natural infrastructure and making it essential tool for anyone involved in large-scale infrastructure planning and implementation.
Yeah, it's just a terrific publication. And I have to say, the illustrations and the landscape architecture drawings are just absolutely beautiful. You can really visualize how these nature-based solutions are being or could be incorporated. It's just fabulous publication. Another really terrific publication that we want to talk about is the Proving Grounds Innovation Handbook. Courtney, this has been underway for a while. We featured many of the contributors and their projects on previous episodes of the Engineer with Nature podcast, but it's really exciting to see all of these groundbreaking examples come together in one place.
That's right, Sarah. It is a cool product. And so what we're doing now in this publication is bringing all of those independent reports together to be a Four Coasts Project Ideas Handbook. So you really get to see how natural infrastructure solutions maybe change by geography, which coast you're on. And again, these are things that are looking forward. What are the possibilities? These are not built projects. These are like what we could do. And I really think that is important in our field, but in any field. It's neat to have a vision for where you're going. What is possible? What do we still need to know? What do we want to do? What could we do? And these projects really get at that. And it's a very natural product to come out of an Engineering with Nature proving ground, because again, our Engineering with Nature proving grounds are districts that said we are going to actively implement Engineering with Nature principles into our everyday mission practice. And in doing that, they also agree to share what they learn. So they're going to implement, they're going to document, and they're going to share. And so this Four Coasts Project Ideas Handbook is a very cool way for them to share what they're learning at the district for others to benefit from.
And this is coming out soon.
That's right. Yes. The work at the four proving grounds has been done. They've already scoped, designed, written those projects up. So we're just in the final editing stages to produce that as one comprehensive document.
And I understand that you've worked with one of your colleagues a lot in getting this published. Maybe you could, bringing this publication together, really, maybe you could introduce her.
Absolutely. Our colleague, Mindy Stravag, she's the managing engineer at Anchor QEA, has really been instrumental in working with us and working with these districts and being a cohesive presence throughout the production of this document. Because again, it's got these four key components, or four coastal components. So those were distinct efforts in four different locations with different districts and different teams. And so she really did a lot of work to bring all of that together and produce this handbook. We're grateful.
She certainly did. And I recently connected with Mindy and talked to her about her role in developing the handbook. And here's what she had to say. Welcome, Mindy. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your role in developing the Proving Grounds Innovation Handbook.
Thank you for having me. So I'm a managing engineer at a company called Anchor QEA, and my general background is in coastal systems, which aligns very nicely with all these efforts, as I'm sure you have heard. I've been doing work in this nature-based area for most of my career in some facet, whether designing living shorelines for communities to enhance their access to the water while slowing their erosion, or managing large-scale sediment management strategies to explore ways to beneficially use that same dredge material. Throughout my career, I've been very fortunate to participate in projects from early conceptualization through implementation and post-construction monitoring. This has given me an exciting perspective on the full life cycle of projects and the teams involved along the way to make them successful. My career has taken me on various roles through the combination of serving as the client from the public perspective, while also supporting projects from the private consulting world. So that's added even more clarity to the priorities of the folks working on these types of nature-based projects in particular, and what it takes to make them successful.
Yeah, absolutely. You've seen a lot on the ground, and you know what works and what doesn't work, but you've also had the opportunity to see some really innovative applications of engineering with nature in practice. So that's how we get to the handbook.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the handbook.
This handbook is only a success because of the role it took to facilitate the collaboration between various efforts, whether that was through ERDIC, the individual proving grounds, the project partners, such as the Dredge Research Collaborative, and various other stakeholders as well. This handbook is the culmination of a collaborative effort with all of those folks, but really focused on specific proving ground Army Corps of Engineer districts for all 4 coasts of the United States. They include the Pacific, of course, the Gulf, the Atlantic, and the Great Lakes in this case. Our team engaged with those district personnel to identify challenges in the regions that could in some way have a solution that enhance or utilize and enhance the power of nature. We worked with Army Corps of Engineers San Francisco District, Army Corps of Engineer Mobile in the Gulf, Philadelphia on the Atlantic coast, and then in the Great Lakes region, we worked with all 3 districts. And so our goal there was to work with them for their challenges, select approximately 5 conceptual projects that we could explore in some way. And then in the Great Lakes region, we actually picked 1 from each district. So that gave us a nice range of the types of project we were able to showcase conceptually. In most cases, then within each district, we picked at least 1 project, sometimes more. And we vetted that with some level of coastal modeling, just to provide proof of concept that these things are going to be practicable and implementable.
Yeah, a lot of interaction with the Proving Grounds teams. Obviously, we featured a number of these projects on the Engineering with Nature podcast, and I know how innovative some of the approaches are that you were covering. Can you talk a little bit about the innovation and what you were trying to capture in the handbook?
Yeah, absolutely. We got to explore different types of solutions, from strategic sediment placement in a shoreline so it would naturally feed into that system, or general beneficial use of dredge material for like an ecosystem restoration project to provide some resilience to that shoreline as a whole, protecting the community and the upland infrastructure. And in one case, we actually looked at a self-perpetuating marsh where we were capturing sediment that was coming down through the fluvial system to enhance that platform in a region that it had been degrading. It was impacting the community access, the habitat value in the region, and then that additional protection for the shoreline. So it was really great to see how those processes played out with each individual concept. And then how that engagement went with the individual team members and the core districts to find ways that we could work within their current systems, but maybe push the boundaries as well on what we thought all of those stakeholders would be able to conceptualize and willing to accept within their system, so we could find ways to push those boundaries for these projects.
Well, I thought it was just a fabulous book, and it's a tremendous resource for practitioners. I'm interested in hearing what some of the highlights are from your perspective.
I think what I'd like to highlight here in particular is the way that we did this work. This effort was a collaboration between scientists, engineers, landscape architects, Army Corps points of contact, of course, with their varied backgrounds, some stakeholders in the regions, so that we could make sure we included their perspective. And so while all of those folks are involved in what we'll call more traditional projects, what made this whole process unique is that we had that opportunity to hear those voices very early during project conceptualization and make sure that there was value add to the project. And we were balancing that social need with the ecosystem need and considering that economic potential for the project. And so
you were building their interests and priorities right into the project, right from the front end.
Exactly. And getting that buy-in early to help advance these concepts. And to that point, that is kind of the whole goal of this handbook, is to get those concepts visualized and conveyed in some way now that all of these folks can pick that mantle up and continue those conversations through their traditional processes to get them funded, to garner support, and move them into the point where they're actually going into implementation.
I want to talk about the illustrations because I thought the illustrations were absolutely beautiful. Wonderful. And one of the things I really loved about the handbook is where you illustrated the current state and then where you illustrated what the future state could be with these nature-based solutions, so that people could conceptualize. Well, it certainly helped me visualize what the possibilities are, but also what the benefits were.
Yeah. And I completely agree. I think kind of seeing those two juxtaposed is really important. Although I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge our team here with the landscape architects folks that really supported these, because the Dredge Research Collaborative, if you haven't heard about that, I'm sure they've been brought up on multiple other podcasts. They do great work, and it's exciting to bring folks in from a different perspective than more traditional engineer approach like I like to do here.
Yeah.
But one project in particular comes to mind in San Francisco, where we're looking at that strategic sediment management, where we're putting sediment near a shoreline and letting it feed into the natural system. And I feel like the visualizations that came along with that, where you could see how the wildlife was impacted, what the elevations were, and what was impacted without the project, and then see how that differs with the project. It was very stunning, and I think very direct.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, Mindy, I want you to talk a little bit about how you think the handbook can add value to really advancing the practice of engineering with nature.
Much like the Navy playbook, this handbook is exploring the possibility of what could be. All the atlases are showcasing the projects that are, and telling those stories. And so the handbook and the Navy playbook both, they start pushing the boundaries a little bit on the projects in certain areas that are considered the norm, and different strategies that are a little bit more sustainable long term. And so really pushing on those concepts of what could be and pushing the boundary for engineering with nature, I think, is the real value for these types of publications.
I think it'll be just a tremendous resource for practitioners and for people that are interested in really moving the needle on nature-based solutions. So, Mindy, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm hoping we have the opportunity to take these from concept and putting them in a future atlas for implementation.
Amanda, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on the handbook. How does it help advance the practice?
Okay, similar to the playbook, the handbook is a fantastic tool for advancing the engineering with nature practice. It, again, provides practical, scalable solutions for infrastructure challenges. And these scalable solutions can provide infrastructure readiness. So we can go to a base, say we are contacted by a base, we have a workshop with them, they show us where their critical infrastructure is, they show us where their issues are, and we can pull out this handbook and say, here's options that we have for design. This is how we can integrate natural infrastructure into a landscape scale solution. And the handbook does a great job exemplifying how we can address those complex ecological and operational challenges with this sustainable approach. And what makes this and all our EWN publications just so critical in advancing the practice is these publications, this handbook's ability to translate that cutting edge research into actionable solutions. As we often say, engineering with nature is not just a vision. It's a practice grounded in real-world applications. And these publications are the key to bridging that gap and bringing that vision to life. I just want to take a moment to commend Mindy and her colleagues at Anchor QEA, and Holly and her colleagues at Jacobs, and all the contributors that made these playbooks and these handbooks possible. Their dedication and expertise and just overall passion to the project has produced resources that will undoubtedly inspire others and propel natural infrastructure into future projects.
Anybody that knows engineering with nature at all knows that there are a lot of people involved. It's a it's a big team of lots of experts, lots of subject matter experts, lots of writers, lots of very talented district practitioners, as well as we have some great editors and designers involved on our team to make these beautiful products. And it's a real pleasure to get to see how all of those pieces come together. And so I'd just like to reference there's lots of hands that make these things happen.
It takes a village to produce these beautiful publications, but boy, I think the work stands on its own. It's just top quality work, and it is, as we've been talking about, really advancing the practice. Before we wrap up, just want to do a quick pick up with you, Courtney, on what you're working on next in terms of publications. What can we expect in the months to come?
Our listeners can get the Navy Playbook today. It's already available on the Engineering with Nature website at engineeringwithnature.org. So please go check that out today. You can find it on Engineering with Nature for the Department of Defense, and it'll be featured prominently there. The Project Ideas Handbook for the Four Coasts is in final editing and should be available this summer. That's about as specific as I can be. And then similarly, our engineering guidance that we talked about, the floodplain benching and the oyster reef technical reports. Those are going to be, floodplain benching will be finished first this summer, and then you could expect oyster reefs by September of this year. So please hang with us while we finish up and polish those products and get them through the final editing stages.
I just want to reiterate how important it is that we have these publications. They're invaluable to our practitioners because they can provide both a scientific foundation combined with this real world application of natural infrastructure. By publishing our work within the Engineering with Nature program, we can ensure that knowledge is shared, lessons are learned, and innovations are going to be scaled up. These publications, they're just critical to advancing the practice. I think advancing the practice has been my slogan of this podcast today, but it really is. It's how you bridge that gap between research and implementation and offer actionable insights. As Courtney mentioned, there are a lot of people, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, there's a lot of passion being shared, and passion is a blessing, but it can also get overwhelming. And a lot of our people are spread thin because they just care. They just care. And so they provide this extra time to do this quality work. And if you are going to do the work, you should publish so that other people can just cite your work and move on and continue to build this beautiful Engineering with Nature thing. So we always want to empower professionals to publish and share their stories so that we can make these sustainable solutions and decisions and ultimately continue to produce resources that push those boundaries of what's possible and support our communities.
Thanks, Amanda. I think that you and Courtney and Mindy and Holly have certainly showed us today that these publications are just so important in advancing the practice. They bring Engineering with Nature alive, and they demonstrate numerous ways of how the application of nature-based solutions is adding value to all sorts of different kinds of infrastructure challenges. And Courtney, thank you for all the work you do to bring these stories to practitioners through all of the multiple platforms that you have your hands on. It's really been a pleasure having you both on the Engineering with Nature podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be with you guys today.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And listeners, remember, if a tree falls in the forest, nobody's there. Does anybody hear it? You know what publications do? They go around yelling, "Hey, a tree fell." So that's my relation back to my John Muir quote. But really, I just, while Courtney's here, want to, she is the breath that makes Engineering with Nature here. That a tree fell in the forest. She is the one that gets this story told. And so just thank you, Courtney, for your work and your your
Amanda,
position's so important.
Don't just talk about it, write it down. That's kind of today's theme, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's our call to action. Share what you're doing.
Yeah, write it down.
Share what you're doing. Write it down, and we'll continue to push on the innovation. To all of you, thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and we hope you'll join us again as we talk about engineering with nature.
You've been listening to the EWN podcast, developed by Sarah Thorne and Jeff King, National Lead, Engineering with Nature Initiative, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Now, for more information, you can visit our website, engineeringwithnature.org. The EWN podcast is produced by iContact Productions for the Engineering with Nature program within the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I'm Dave Trafford.